Is this a spirit? My story starts about 21 years ago when I was 18. I had moved into a flat with another person about a month after I moved in. He claimed there was a female ghost in the house. I never took much notice of this. However, one evening when I was at home alone, I swear I could feel something moving towards me. I could not see anyone, but I could feel it coming closer. All of a sudden, I felt a sensation start around my stomach and spread out to every part of my body. The closest I can describe it is like pins and needles, but not as severe. This was accompanied by a profound feeling of love that flooded my body. This started happening on a regular basis. At first, only at night, then later on during the day as well. Sometimes, I feel a light pressure on my chest. Sometimes it will be on the left or right side of my chest, but never uncomfortable. I sometimes feel pressure on my legs and hands as well. But this lasted for about 6 months. Then it stopped for about a year. Then it started up again, and it's been on and off for the last 21 years. While I was fairly sure this is a friendly spirit, I have been unable to communicate with it. The feeling of love intensified and stayed with me for about 7 hours before slowly fading. Then about 2 weeks later, I was awakened by what felt like a kiss on the lips. I was alone at the time, and the kiss did not feel natural. It was too firm, like having something unyielding pushed against my lips. There was no emotion involved with this either, although I was not afraid, but I was startled awake. So I am unsure if this was the same entity or not. I also have a dog of 14 years who has been in the room with me, and she has never felt the entity because she's never barked or bothered to look. So, is this a spirit? Medieval hotel. This all happened around 20 years ago, but I can still remember it as though it happened yesterday. The hotel is stunningly beautiful. It dates back to medieval times. There are parts of it that are still the original wood paneling walls, and the main window on the staircase is the original one of that day. The gardens are amazing. It is really a beautiful place. My husband and I were invited to a wedding, and guests were offered special rates to rooms if they wished to stay, which we did. We were booked into the chapel room. On arrival, we dropped our bags and then headed off to the wedding, which was being held in the hotel grounds. We all then gathered onto the patio area and had drinks and met up with friends and family not seen for years. After this, we gathered into the most stunning room I've ever seen. I thought I had gone back to medieval days. The tables were all solid old wood, and we sat on benches the length of the room. All our utensils were metal, goblets, and plates, and we ate with wooden spoons. The food was a medieval hog roast. There was a joker going around telling jokes and singing. All in all, a totally fabulous time. That evening we spent dancing to a live band, and at the end of the night, a few of us stragglers had a nightcap in the bar and went to bed exhausted. Now, what I am about to explain I had confirmed the next day by the hotel manager. He said not everyone that stayed had witnessed this. I was one of probably 10. We went to bed exhausted and fell asleep immediately. I was woken by a chiming clock that was just down the hall from our room. I looked at my watch and it said 2 a.m. I got out of bed to get a drink of water from the bathroom and I heard a woman crying. In fact, she was sobbing quite hard and loud. I listened carefully and it sounded very much like it was outside our bedroom door, so I gently opened the door. And I could see, at the end of the hall, was a woman in a long white gown. For a split second I thought it was the bride. So I walked down the hall. As I was walking, I asked if she was okay and could I help her. The figure became more transparent the closer I got, and then just disappeared. Gone. For a second, I stood there, and it was as though I was sleepwalking. I kind of thought, what am I doing out in the hall? I couldn't remember anything. I returned to our room and got back into bed, but as I did, the clock in the hall chimed again and I checked my watch. It was 4 a.m. Was I really out of bed in the hall for 2 hours? The next morning we went down for breakfast and I spoke with the hotel manager at the desk. I told him not to laugh at what I was about to tell him. I told him what I had witnessed in the early hours. He ushered me to a side office and asked me to sit down. He basically told me the whole story, and yes, a few people had heard and witnessed what I had. At exactly 2 a.m., the clock chiming woke them up also. But the clock has no workings in it. It's just a replica for show only. The hotel manager told me that no one knows who the woman is or why she's sobbing. But on one particular night, every year, the clock chimes at 2 a.m. and she walks the hall. He then told me that the clock chimes again at 4 a.m. He told me he had tried to trace the history of the hotel, which dates back to the Knights of the Templar, but he cannot find anything out. He also said that she's been seen running through the grounds. When I look back on that day and evening, I can remember one more thing. I saw that same woman dancing in the main hall. Whisper. This experience of mine happened when I was working at a small call center. I am not a scared type of person, though I have a weird sense of imagination. I do believe that you should have your faith bigger than your fears. Our workplace is located in a 2-story commercial building with coffee shops, salons, food stores. Everything is downstairs, and a lot of tenants on the second floor, and that includes us. At night, it would be eerie since we are the only tenant open, and the rest of the shops close at 5. You can imagine the dim lights in the hallways with few benches you can sit on. By the way, the building is an old one, somehow surrounded with trees, plants, and bushes. I forgot what our schedule was like, but I didn't forget that lunchtime was 3 a.m. I haven't seen any creatures before, but I do believe I can hear some of them. It was lunchtime when I decided to go to sleep. My seatmates do the same as well. My seatmate G, from the right, sleeps in her cubicle. So does my seatmate K. We turn off the lights every time we nap. One night, I was asleep when I had this nightmare. I was asleep in my cubicle, the same position, head on desk with arms as my pillows. Then a deep, low-toned voice whispered in my ear. His voice sounded like a demon to me. He spoke the language I don't understand. His voice scared me to death. I tried moving, kicking, but I can't. Is this sleep paralysis? I don't know. I shouted to seatmate G, who was sleeping next to me, but she couldn't hear me. I didn't lose hope, though. I was able to wake up. I looked around at my surroundings, but everybody was asleep, except I can't find seatmate K. Apparently, she moved to the training room beside our production floor. When I told my seatmates what happened to me, it seems like everybody else experienced the same nightmare. Another nightmare happened to me the next day, but when I slept this time, it wasn't a whisper. It was black smoke that headed towards me. From then on, I promised myself not to sleep during lunchtime.